This is Eva Braunfinger from Germany. Very thick accent.
Oh, I'm good at that. I love the cutting. Oh,
No, it's fine.
What's your name?
Todd Carrington.
Name is Todd Carrington.
Berg.
Carrington Berg.
Son.
I'm sorry. Todd Carrington Bergson.
Field.
And Field.
Wait, I'm sorry. I just want to watch the rest of the show.
Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love when you want, where you want, however you want. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey, I'm Brian Brushwood, but most importantly, how soon can I watch whatever it is that I just saw, Bryce?
Right?
Very soon, as soon as next week, I believe. That was a trailer for Netflix's upcoming series, Murderville. It stars Will Arnett, who teams up with celebrities. They play like a cop investigating a murder. But the celebrity guests do not have a script, and so they have to improv their way through these murder investigations. The BBC, actually, this is based on a BBC formula from a few years ago, but some of the guests will include Kumail Nanjiani, Conan O'Brien, Ken Jeong, and former NFL running back Marshawn Lynch.
So
That's coming up this week, I believe, on Netflix.
it looked to me from this format that there's an earpiece and a coach. Will Arnett is coaching them and giving them like curveballs. My guess is everybody in the scene is kind of playing it straight. They're all actors. They all know where they're supposed to go.
I think the supporting cast do, yeah.
Correct. But the celebrity guest is the one that has to just roll with it. There was a primetime NBC show where there would be like a magical door that you would walk into, and then suddenly you would find yourself in a scene that you had to just roll with as if you knew what was going on. I remember Jason Alexander suddenly finds himself on the bridge of a 60s era Enterprise kind of ship type thing. If this is anything like that, I'm 100% in.
And the other bit of it is that the celebrities don't know who did the crime and have to guess who did the crime.
So from their perspective, they're playing a puzzle room.
They're actually doing the investigation. Yeah. So that's called Murderville. It's coming to Netflix.
I think one of the coolest things about this is it shows the power of video, because I know we talked about it before, might have even just been last week, and I gave my usual phoning it in sort of like,
maybe it'll be good.
Got a new thing on the Netflix. It's Murderville. And the interesting thing is that he is the only one who knows the plot, and everybody else is just playing along. Boy, did that not do it justice. The video is just so much more compelling to be like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see where this goes next.
Well, and it's astonishing how just from that 15 seconds of video, you're able to intuit what I hope correctly is so many of the conceits and the plots are like, oh, you're doing that. I mean, it's almost as though video is worth more than a picture, and a picture is already worth 1,000 words.
That's a lot of money.
Okay, how much money must Netflix be making on this?
Let's find out at our primary target.
Good save.
Netflix reported that it added 8.28 million net subscribers worldwide in Q4 for a total of 221.8 million. If you're wondering, that was not good news. It had wanted to add 8.5 million. It thought it was going to add 8.5 million, so 8.2 missed that. And analysts had even been a little more conservative and like, I don't know, Netflix, we think you're only going to add 8.3 million, and they didn't even hit that. It's also about half the number of people who subscribed the same quarter the year before in 2020. In a letter to shareholders, Netflix said streaming competition, quote, may be affecting our marginal growth some. It's the slowest growth for Netflix since 2015. And the next quarter isn't going to be that much better. Netflix expects to add 2.5 million in Q1. And that would be just a little more than half of the 4 million they added in the same period last year. Now, a lot of analysts say that this indicates that Netflix's growth during pandemic lockdown was cannibalizing future growth, and it's not catching up and continuing to accelerate. It just moved growth it would have had on a normal non-pandemic line forward, and now it's caught up to that and it's flattening out. A Wall Street Journal also had this little nugget at the end of its article about the results. Mr. Hastings, referring to co-CEO Reed Hastings, attributed some of that challenge to Netflix's lack of live news and sports. He said if the company can land 80% of the U.S. pay TV market, quote, that's a good accomplishment. So, Brian, let me propose 3 ways that this could go. 3 scenarios for you: the good, the bad, and the crazy.
Okay.
All right. Here's the good. This is just a temporary COVID-induced blip. COVID messed with all the patterns. This is just catching up, like they say. Economies are going to settle down. People are going to feel less uncertain. Netflix is going to get back into a rhythm of growing strong, especially in international markets. They will lead the way on content. They'll continue to improve their image as a place for high quality content. That's the good scenario. The bad scenario, the financial uncertainty of the world on one side and the increased competition from high end and possibly higher quality competitors like Disney Plus and HBO Max stagnate Netflix. It hits a block in its growth no matter where in the world it makes content. It ends up chasing its tail, trying to get a hit in one country, but those don't translate to others, and it never gets the momentum it needs.
Okay.
Here's the crazy. Maybe if you don't like one of those first two, you'll like this one. Neither of those scenarios matter, as Netflix does what it does best and pulls off unexpected moves ahead of stagnation, and within the next 5 years becomes a leader in cloud gaming while offering the perfect live news and sports service.
So let me take these in reverse order and try to eliminate, order them from least likely to most likely. Least likely is the bad scenario because it presumes that Netflix is not very nimble and keeps on doing the thing it's doing and gets outplayed at its own game. Yes, globally, we're seeing a slowdown. And yes, there is a lot of competition, but we're talking about their global numbers. I'm going to be so fascinated to see how their little experiments, like in Africa, where they had mobile users were able to watch a limited amount and then to get them hooked and so on.
And don't forget Disney and HBO Max, they also are dealing with the same world economy Netflix is on, right? It's the same playing surface as far as that goes.
Right. But the idea that Netflix will not figure out something clever is the least likely to me. The good scenario is likely, but it has some hidden moves that I think are revealed in the things that Reed Hastings said. For example, when he casually mentions, well, we haven't tried live and we haven't tried sports, that's him saying we have a lot of levers that we have not yet elected to pull. And when we do, we expect to see something happen. We are waiting until the time is right to pull any of those levers. And knowing that they are highly experimental, algorithmically based, and iterative, suggests that the good scenario is very likely. The crazy scenario I like the best because it boils down to much like if you're any other species on Earth, you shouldn't bet against humans. I would not bet against Netflix because they're going to figure something out. And they have failed to get me to subscribe to their gaming service, but I got very close, very, very close.
Well, it's not a
you don't have
subscription.
to subscribe. You
Sorry.
are subscribed to their gaming service.
To bother to click a button and download and play and invest time at whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And honestly, they don't care. They don't care that you haven't downloaded that game any more than they cared whether you had gone and streamed one of the movies from your DVD queue, back in 2009, because that mobile gaming service is exactly where streaming was back then. Everybody thinks like, this is a dumb idea. It's never going to catch on. Netflix is not going to be able to make this work. But they better do something, because that old service, back then the DVD service, this time, the maturing streaming service, can't grow forever. And we're already seeing the signs of stagnation. And Netflix has already moved on. They're like hiring like crazy. They're talking about doing like multiplayer live. They're talking about doing live video games, maybe not live news and sports yet, but live video games. And then who knows what other unexpected moves. I kind of believe they might not do live news and sports, but I also wouldn't rule it out as something that they change their mind about later.
100% agreed. And in fact, maybe those words are actually code for we have other moves to make. These are the moves everybody is expecting us to make.
Right.
I will not make the mistake of saying the moves we actually intend to make. Also, the mobile gaming scene, I think ultimately could be a very strong play, because once you cuddle up to a mobile game, it owns you. I mean, I am a possession of Hearthstone, and now in my case, I have yet to see a game that I want to jump over into the Netflix ecosystem, but by buying up exclusives, much like Facebook did with Oculus to push out Vive, they could own mobile gaming, and it's like you're just going to be stuck with it. What are you going to, like? If you told me starting tomorrow, Hearthstone alone required Netflix, they would have me forever and ever and ever.
And imagine how many kids are plopped down with an iPad and a Netflix. If you can have Netflix playing in a corner, picture in picture, and they're playing card shoot or whatever games that they came up with, that can be a big value add if you are a parent, if you have a child on your account.
Well, and that's the other part of this that I think is interesting too, is especially with Microsoft agreeing to acquire Activision Blizzard, you might be forgiven for saying like, yeah, but where, Netflix is going to have to make its own content, right? It's going to have to make its own properties. There just aren't that many out there for them to license. And it's like, well, you said that about originals. You said, well, Netflix is going to have to license stuff from Starz, and if they lose that, they're done. Turns out Netflix could bridge those two worlds. I wouldn't be shocked if they're continuing to follow we'll make some games based on our existing properties like Stranger Things, Bridgerton, etc. But also get some originals. Get Take-Two or somebody else to make them some original properties that they work in reverse. Maybe they turn those into TV shows.
And a quick reminder that the very first Netflix original series was Lilyhammer, which was a middling comedy drama from Norway that they bought. And likewise, they're doing the exact same thing in the gaming market of getting middling successes, buying them outright, fully owning them, making them Netflix originals. And
just adding them to your account. That's what they did with streaming originally, right? If you had DVDs, you got the streaming. They didn't break them out until later.
Yep. So if anything, I'm going to go with the crazy, failing that the good. If they continue with the good, it just means that all of the projections show that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We're going to continue to expand until we cover the earth. But I do think that they're going to have enough pressure on them that they're going to have to actually pull one of those crazy levers.
And I think people shouldn't underestimate that the content is continuing to get better. For the first few years, it was, can they even do good originals? Then it was, can they do enough good originals? Then it was, can they do any sustained high quality originals? And I think they're filling in those gaps merely by firepower. Merely by just, taking multiple shots, and, every once in a while they hit, and they keep hitting a little more and a little more and a little more. I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but not as interesting as becoming a patron of patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Oh my gosh. If you want to be on the cutting edge of something that actually matters, why don't you give us $1 per episode so that you can keep us loud, live, and independent right here at Cordkillers. Head on over to patreon.com/Cordkillers. You get your own RSS feed the same day. You get all 3 programs. You get the Cordkillers, you get the Spoilerin Time episodes, and you get our After Talk bonus stuff that is just for patrons. Most importantly, you get the smug satisfaction of knowing you're better than everybody else.
Oh man, you can't put a price on that, except you can by
it's $1 an episode.
Yeah. Patreon.com/Cordkillers. Let's talk about how to watch. We talk about Fubo TV from time to time on the show. It's the sports-focused cable replacement streaming TV service. They have the entertainment channels on there too, but their big pitch is, if you want the best sports-oriented streaming service, get us. Fubo has focused on sports-friendly features as a result. They have one that lets you watch up to 4 channels at once, so you can keep tabs on multiple games. Another one called Fan View lets you see stats and scores from the game you're watching in a little widget alongside the video. It's kind of handy if you're watching the game, you want to know who's scoring the most, or especially if you have a fantasy team. Now, Apple TV users can combine those features. You can have 2 live channels up and 2 fan view widgets at the same time. So you can have 2 games going on and see the stats. Fubo shows this off in their video as a way to see stats from the game you're watching alongside the video of the game. I guess you could put other games in there too. I remember at CES back in 2000, Microsoft and AT&T showed this sort of thing off in connection to Microsoft's Ultimate TV DVR box. It has never really caught on, but is that because the tech and the bandwidth and the audience hasn't been there? You know, like we've got better bandwidth now. We've got higher productive processors. We've got more people doing cord cutting and watching TV on boxes. Or is it just something we don't want? And for you non-sports fans, is there something here for you when you're watching, say, a movie and getting, like, I don't know about live box score stats, but, you know, information about the actors and what other things they've been in, or information behind the scenes stuff? Brian, what do you think?
So let's start with the last part first. Absolutely, this would be something that I would want. And as evidence, I present to the court the X-ray feature on Amazon. Every time I watch a movie, and it's always organic and natural, I press pause for kid-related reasons, and suddenly I'm finding out a factoid about the movie or the production, or who's the son of so-and-so, or what projects they worked on, or why I know that actor's face from some other thing or whatever. I am shocked that for those of us old enough, you might remember VH1's pop-up video, where essentially the conceit was, we know you've already seen the music video, so we're going to do a value add of popping up factoids about the production of the video, how well the various, chart-topping performances were, who that is in the background or whatever. I'm so surprised that Amazon hasn't dived deeper into their X-ray feature to offer that as a layer that you can have persistently on. So yes, I definitely am all in for that, especially for any kind of comfort watch where it's a movie that I've already seen before. All of a sudden it becomes fresh and engaging and original and new. Number 2, I know you're not wrong, Tom, when you say that this idea hasn't really caught on before, but might I propose that it kind of has in the form of sports bars. You go to sports bars because they have all of the TVs on to all of the different games at the same time. And they all have the closed captioning on. So you're able to follow everything by just glancing around at once. Which brings me to my question to you, number 3. This seems like a very effective, I don't want to say ploy, but when it comes time to announce total number of streams, this seems like a way for Fubo to double, triple, quadruple dip and say, much bigger numbers on so many streams. We're the king of streams, so many hours of watcher engagement or whatever. Does that play into this at all, or do you think it's just a sports thing that they're satisfying?
I don't think it plays in, and I'm perfectly willing to be proven wrong later when they absolutely do what you're talking about. But to me, that scenario plays out as the advertisers don't care because they're like, which platform did it run on? We don't care how many streams you have. What we care about is, did our impression get in front of somebody? So maybe there's something there where they could have more impressions show up because they sell ads on the widget as well as on the stream. Plus you've got multiple streams, so there's multiple ads. But I also imagine advertisers might say, like, did our ad show on the full screen or in the 4 screen? Because if it was on the 4, it's less it's less impactful, and we don't want to pay as much with that. Also, if somebody touts a big number, there's so many outlets out there that will double check and dive in and say, like, yeah, but they're double reporting their widgets and their streams. That I just don't think that lasts very long. Plus, what's more valuable is subscribers. And this kind of thing doesn't affect the number of subscribers. And I think that's really where Fubo wants to win, is the subscribers. So I'm skeptical that this helps them in the numbers war.
My only pushback would be that there's 2 types of advertising. There's awareness advertising, which is, billboards and Super Bowl ads and stuff where you don't actually expect to be able to track in terms of sales.
But even awareness advertising benefits from being the only one on the screen.
Sure. But if you're the middle management who's buying the awareness advertisement, as opposed to the direct marketing team. The direct marketing team is going to have their feet held to the fire. They're going to be shown, we gave you $1 million budget and you only brought in $500,000 of sales. Clearly, this is a bad idea. Don't do it, or whatever. I don't know. I think we're far enough out in the weeds to bring it back.
Yeah, I'm starting to get ticks. Let's come back.
Took me a second for me to realize you meant the 8-legged creature. I'm going to say yes, I would like this for film. No, I don't think anyone's going to do it, because if anybody was best positioned to have already done it, it would have been Amazon, and they haven't done it, so I don't see why other services would.
And I'll bring your bar point back up. That may be good enough. The reason this may not have caught on is people are like, yeah, if I want that, I go to a bar so I can enjoy it with a bunch of other people and have a beer and, maybe a steak or a hamburger while I do it.
Which again, for the past 2 years has been off the menu, so to speak. But
right.
But now increasingly,
we sort of have an A/B test there of like, did you really want this at home, or did you go to the bar because you enjoyed being out and about and that was just an added bonus? I don't know. I still feel like part of the reason you can't say this is done and like, no, nobody really wants it, is we haven't got to the point where everybody's getting their TV over an internet connection, right? Once we get to, and when I say everybody, I mean like more than 70% of people. Once we get to that, we're like, oh, well, most people get it over an internet connection. Then I think we finally get somebody who hits on the thing you can deliver over a connected stream that you couldn't over, ATS 2.0, ATSC 2.0 streams over broadcast and over cable, and comes up with that thing where it's like, oh, I love turning on, and maybe it's even Amazon's thing, because I get these cool facts, or it helps me keep track of this really difficult, like a Yellow Jackets style plot device, because I get these little markers that help me keep track. I wouldn't rule it out, but I'm starting to think that we just want to watch our video. We don't really care about the bells and whistles on the side. That's a separate thing.
So one of the conversations we had on today's Weird Things program was the quiet revolution of AI, and about how you could tell AI is serious because it's showing up in ways that it's not announcing itself. And we talked about like in iOS, I'll run across pictures and I was like, I didn't take this picture. I don't know where it came from, but it's a very good picture of me and somebody I care about at an event that happened. And it's like, if you click on it, it'll say, oh, it was in a text from this time at this place or whatever. Like, we're going to get more of that. And given that over-the-top services are becoming more dominant, like even my parents have cut the cable cord at this point, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that my dad tends to watch Auburn games. And it's not going to take an advanced AI to say, hey, Auburn game coming up in a bit. Let me just guide you over to the pre-show. Oh, wait. And then I can even imagine, we've talked about with sports programming, there being different streams for different audiences. Obviously, if you're an Auburn fan, you're going to want to hear one live take that's going to be different from the take of whoever they're playing against. And probably not the Nickelodeon Slime-O-Vision version or whatever. but very quickly, all of that will kind of just be, I don't want to say taken out of your hands, but you're going to be nudged so gently that all you're going to do is turn it on and you're like, oh, this is what's happening today. And you're not going to worry about it.
I think Apple is not necessarily the one that will do this. It's not necessarily not the one that will do this, but there is an Apple TV feature that rings so true to this that I have to bring it up. You can tell it, it's not AI, you're telling it what your favorite sports teams are. And when you're watching something else, if the St. Louis Blues game is about to start, I'll just do a little pop-up in the upper right corner like, hey, Blues game about to start. Click on the TV button if you want to switch over to it. Otherwise, keep enjoying your show. And I love that. It will even do things like, look, we know you like hockey, so we're going to give you a little like, so-and-so's going for a hat trick with 2 minutes left. Click over there if you want to watch that. And we know, because we know you like hockey, and that's a historic moment,
Well,
and hat trick, but maybe a record, right? Like about to score the 300th goal of their career or something like that. And I love those. I don't find them intrusive because they're totally based on my preferences. It's not that much of a step to say, well, now we have AI that's really good and is able to identify more of those kinds of things for you.
Yeah, and it's been fascinating to watch my phone figure out, with no prompting from me at all, to figure out, like, the phone used to think, well, around this time, you seem to go to the VFW hall. So if you want to go to the VFW, go for it. And then it eventually figures out, oh, no, wait, you work there, but you don't work at the VFW. You work next door at this place. And you always tend to go, and especially, and of course, Google does the same thing with docs. Every time you open it up, it's like, hey, man, let me guess. The Cordkillers doc, because Tom edited it earlier. And
and
this is when you look at it.
Yeah.
I would have thought I would have minded it more than I do. But there's never that like, that do you want to, or is it okay, or whatever. Like, you could phrase that same thing as like 10 minutes left in the game, it's tied for the World Series. That would be phrased maybe as a pop-up news alert that you could click on, not so much asking, do you want to jump over and see it?
Yeah. I got not upset, but I got slightly annoyed by getting in my car to go to Casa Vega Saturday, and I sat down in the car, and Apple Maps said, want to head to Casa Vega? Because we see on your calendar that you've got a reservation at Casa Vega. And I was like, darn it, yes, but I don't want to use you, Apple Maps.
We've talked about this. Bryce and I have talked quite a bit, because I get a little jittery just about anyone having my number, even when they're right. It's like, yeah, but I don't like you having my number. And whereas Bryce, feel free to explain it your way, but it seems like basically your point is like, no, they just make it more customized for you. What's bad about that?
Basically, I mean, like the iPhone stuff, that is all on device and is not, going to Amazon's servers, presumably.
Right. There's no they. It's just your local storage.
Yeah. And so, I don't have Echo devices in my house and Google Home devices and things, but, the little bits of those that I have are ones that I feel okay with.
Yeah. My problem was, like, if Waze had said, hey, we see you're going to Casa Vega, can we launch the trip? I would have been happy. I would have been like, yes, exactly what I want. All right, let's talk about what to watch and Under Surveillance.
I like real estate. It's all about location. Under Surveillance.
Amazon released a teaser for its new Lord of the Rings prequel series. It was someone reading that quote from Lord of the Rings about the forging of the great rings, and some for the elves and some for the humans. That led up to the reveal of the prequel series title. It will be called The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Series takes place during the Second Age. We already knew that, when Sauron forged the Great Rings. And showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay said to Variety that the series will deal with the forging of the rings, the rise of the Dark Lord Sauron, the epic tale of Numenor, and the last alliance of elves and men. All of that and more scheduled to arrive on Prime Video September 2nd, Brian.
So I have been very skeptical of the worthiness of the $150 million they spent for basically a world-building Bible, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that they're not trying to sell me on any on any beings, any battles, any lands, or whatever, they're using the one hook I know, which is, oh yeah, there was that one ring to rule them all. But instead, they're saying, hey, who liked Lock and Key? Who thought it was cool that those keys keep showing up and each one had a different power? Wouldn't you like to know where these rings show up? 100%. Like smart play. It gives them the runway to because among all those numbers, you can have a lot of failures and then just move on to the next set of rings.
Yeah, you got a lot of rings.
Right.
The elves have a bunch, the humans got a bunch, the dwarves got a bunch. Sauron only has one. How could he possibly win? Well, because he had the one to rule them all, I guess. But yeah, I've always been like, yeah, what's the story about those other rings? Why were they even important if there's this one ring that ruled them all? And how did it get to be the one ring that ruled them all? And how did he even convince people? Well, now we'll have a series that will explore those very questions. I'm in. Marvel released a full-length trailer for Moon Knight, the Disney Plus series starring Oscar Isaac. Isaac has a, by some accounts, credible British accent. He'll be playing Stephen Grant. Stephen Grant shares his body with mercenary Mark Spector and becomes Moon Knight. Moon Knight arrives on Disney Plus March 30th.
So all I've heard is people talk about the British accent, which leads me to believe that he doesn't have a native British accent, which upon hearing that he has a DID, dissociative identity disorder, makes me believe that Moon Knight probably doesn't have a British accent.
Has Oscar Isaac's accent.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly, yeah. Yeah, dude, I'm down. Please keep trying, Disney. you could get me back.
Yeah, there was nothing in this trailer that unnecessarily or unexpectedly excited me, but it looked good.
It did very loudly scream, "We are not Batman," which is, as somebody who maybe read like one or two issues of Moon Knight when it was a comic book, I'm like, oh, it's a reverse Batman. I get it. It very clearly I was wrong in that impression, and this sounds to me like a new direction. Possibly not as madcap as a Deadpool or whatever, but the idea of somebody unhinged as a hero, I think there's plenty to play with there.
More like Venom, which is also Marvel, than it is like Batman to me. Although it's got lots of differences there too.
I hate that you're right, Tom.
How about this one? Paramount Plus gave a bunch of Star Trek announcements. New seasons of Star Trek Discovery, season 5, Lower Decks season 4. Strange New Worlds hasn't even premiered yet. It's getting a season 2. Season 1 of Strange New Worlds starts May 5th. That's the one that's set prior to Star Trek, the original series. Star Trek Lower Decks returns later this summer. Star Trek's Picard season 2 got a date. It premieres on March 3rd. And we got a trailer for Star Trek Picard showing time travel, Guinan, and the Borg Queen all play a part in the next Picard story. So
this sounds a little bit to me like very familiar. It seems like a lot of these services find the one thing that is the hook, the heroine that a certain segment of their audience can't give up. And then it's like, just never be more than a couple of months away from more of that stuff. For example, on Disney Plus, it's Marvel stuff or Star Wars or whatever. Like there's never a window big enough that I can ever afford to cancel that account. And Paramount Plus correctly is figured out, that turns out Star Trek fans a bit passionate.
Yeah. If you like Star Trek, we're going to always have some Star Trek for you.
It's just going to be around the corner.
Stars. What do you think? I actually loved Guinan in The Next Generation. I know if there are varying opinions about her character out there. It's a little cheesy that they named her bar 10 Forward Avenue. I don't know if you caught that in the trailer.
Oh, you know what? I actually did
bar
not.
10 on Forward Avenue. But also I kind of hate myself for liking it because I laughed when I saw it. And honestly, I just love seeing Guinan again. I'm way into it.
What does that mean? Bar 10 on Forward Avenue?
10 Forward was the deck in Star Trek The Next Generation where Guinan's bar was.
Okay.
We'll see.
Okay.
They don't call attention to it. It's just there if you like it. If not, just ignore it. It's fine. It's fine. I'm very excited about having Guinan back. I like Guinan. And the Borg Queen, even though it's a different actress. HBO Max released a trailer for Taika Waititi's Our Flag Means Death, coming in March, starring Rhys Darby as aristocrat Steve Bonnet, who turns to a life of piracy. Waititi appears in the series as Blackbeard. The comedy is loosely based on the actual Steve Bonnet, who was known as a gentleman pirate in the 18th century.
We reported on the early reports of this. I'm in with Rhys Darby. I'm in with Taika Waititi. You had me at hello. But upon watching the trailer 2 or 3 times, strong Ted Lasso vibes happening, where he's going into a very embittered industry, trying to bring positivity. And I'm 100% here for it, especially with Rhys Darby.
I should have looked this up on IMDb, but it didn't occur to me right now. There's a character in the Outlander TV series, I swear is called Bonnet, might even be Steve Bonnet, who is a pirate, and he's a very, very bad and disturbing man. And I'm like, is it based on the same guy, or did she just borrow the name and it's not the same guy? Very curious about that. Cordkillers@gmail.com if you know. But also very excited about Taika Waititi and Rhys Darby. They're both pretty great. So
I wish you would stop winning at everything. Everything's got Taika Waititi in it, and everything he touches turns out to be, at worst, great.
At worst, great.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I didn't love this trailer, but I think it's because my expectations for Taika Waititi are so high, where I'm like, that was just great. It wasn't amazing.
At worst, great.
Right? Yeah, exactly. All right, let's talk about what we have our eyes on. Mr. Brian Brushwood, what's something you've been watching lately?
Man, I got kids. These kids, they keep on badgering me, and the Badger Committee finally won and got me to watch the first 3 episodes of Arcane, the League of Legends video game inspired.
Did they reverse Brushwood you? Did they say, listen, Dad, just try 10 minutes of
They
it?
did.
And if you don't
They totally
like
did. They learned from the master, and they got me to admit, I have now seen the first episode 3 times because now I am infected, and so I keep doing the same thing. It's all an MLM. Eventually, everyone is going to like the things that I like because all of us are going to show it all the way down. But my goodness, you've already watched the entire series, right?
That's right. Yeah. We ended up dipping our toes in, and I wouldn't call it a background watch, but what I did love is that I wasn't captivated and didn't feel like I had to keep watching it, but also never felt like turning it off. It was always like, that was kind of a good ending. We should just watch the next one and see what happens, right? And we blazed through it.
So there are certain shows that reward your full attention with very tiny details, where very deep context is communicated in a facial gesture or something like that. This is one of those where I wouldn't blame you at all. Like, I could totally see myself going through the whole thing while playing Hearthstone and saying, yeah, it was pretty good. But this is one of those, I gave it my full attention, and I never once felt betrayed or wasted. There was always something deeper and more interesting to get into. In fact, I began the first hits free with Bryce over the weekend yesterday, just trying to get him to watch the opening.
I ended up watching the first episode. I don't know what the show is, and I think that's a very unfortunate way to end the first episode, where you're just like, I guess these are fine characters, and it looks beautiful. The animation's great. It's fantastic. They're not talking about lanes and farming and all of the League of Legends terminology, but I feel like this is the first episode didn't get me. I think I
was very skeptical. This is interesting. I was very skeptical when Eileen wanted to watch it. I was like, fine, we'll watch the League of Legends show, I guess. And after the first episode, I was like, that wasn't bad. Sure, let's watch another one. And it just built. So it is a show that I feel like doesn't present itself as well as it's going to end at the beginning. And not that it's bad at the beginning, but no. I just found like it just slowly kept getting better without me realizing it. So that by the end, I was like, when's season 2? Like, I'm ready to watch it.
That is something I've heard, is that it is a very rewatchable show. So once I complete my run, I would love to do a spoiler in time and talk it out with you. I'm really excited.
I want to also make a similar plea for Peacemaker on HBO Max. It's a Max original. It's not just HBO. It's HBO Max. It is the DC universe. It's James Gunn. And it's the Peacemaker John Cena created for the movie Suicide Squad that James Gunn did with his own subset of the Suicide Squad universe showing up. Pretty much just John Cena as far as the big names go. But you get Harcourt and you get what's his name, the big hacker guy. But the first episode I watched, I thought that had some funny parts. It was okay. Second episode, I felt kind of the same way. By the third episode, I was texting both of you saying like, I don't know, but I think this might be genius.
I've heard nothing but it's amazing, and I have to dive in, and so I will. But
Economist, that's his name.
I'm going to guess that this is not a family watch. I'm going to guess this is, and probably not even a Brian and Bonnie watch, just a Brian watch.
It could be a Bonnie watch.
Okay,
actually, it could even be your middle child. I'm not sure about you,
Josie. Yeah. Josie would be actually. Yeah, she came with us to go.
Probably
see
too mature for your youngest. Probably too violent for your oldest, because I know her tastes, but I mean, I don't know her taste, but I know that in particular. But it's surprising. I almost feel like this is James Gunn saying, now that I have been through being canceled for something I regret saying,
I'm going to say whatever
have an entire
I want.
Series about people who say things they shouldn't and why they say them. And let's have other people who legitimately are around them going, yeah, you shouldn't say that. I know you're not a bad guy, but you shouldn't think that way, or you shouldn't do that way. And then let's also have a character who is unabashedly bad, who isn't just saying bad things, is a bad person, so that you can set them by each other and goes, here's a person who's making mistakes and not doing right and probably should do better. Here's a bad person. Let me show you the difference. And the way it's executed is done very well, because it's not the mistake-making person or the bad person who's able to explain it. It's the people who would be the victims of that bad behavior having agency and saying like, here's the difference. Let me explain to you. It's really well done.
That's brilliant. I think I'll check it out as soon as we're done.
All right. That is Peacemaker on HBO Max, Arcane on Netflix. Bryce, what should we be on the lookout for?
Hey, we got an email from BioCow who writes, hey, Cordkillers, I wanted to recommend a show that is streaming on Peacock called Resident Alien, starring Alan Tudyk. It's a comedic drama that I would describe as, quote, Third Rock from the Sun meets Northern Exposure. Apologies for the dated shows, kids. With a bit of a murder mystery thrown in. In the pilot, an alien, Tudyk, crash lands in a small Colorado town while trying to complete his mission, exterminating human life on the planet. When he tries to repair his ship, he takes the form of Harry, a retired doctor who mostly keeps to himself. But when the small town's working doctor is murdered, the mayor asks its reclusive retired doctor, and now an alien, to help solve the mystery and attend to the small town's general medical needs. The premise is basic, but Tudyk's performance of Harry and his interactions with the people in the small town are worth the watch. And if nothing else, watch the pilot to see an amazing beatbox performance by Corey Reynolds from The Closer, who plays the town sheriff. Getting into the show now is perfect timing. Season 1 is available on Peacock, and Season 2 begins on January 26th. Thanks all, and love the show, BioCow. Thank you, BioCow. This is a sci-fi show. It's not a Peacock original, but it is a sci-fi show that is streaming on Peacock, which I think is the same situation when we talked about Chucky a few weeks ago. It's a sci-fi show, but you can just stream it on Peacock. And yeah, the first half of Season 2 is going to start airing later this week on the 26th. You will probably, I think you can watch it on cable, a VOD. It's not streaming on Hulu, but it's on Peacock. But if you have Hulu with live TV, YouTube TV, or if you have a cable, you might be able to see it through that.
DVR it, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So check that out. That's called Resident Alien. And thank you so much, BioCow. If you've got something we should be on the lookout for, email it to us, please. Cordkillers@gmail.com. Thank you.
Brian, I like getting emails, but only the right emails.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I guess I don't.
No, so the wrong emails are spam, right? Everybody knows that. But the right emails are a person who's interested in what you're doing, who you emailed a big note saying, here's what I think of that Microsoft Activision thing this week. And then they respond with like, hey, this made me think of a question. Let me ask you that question. And then I emailed them back like, man, that's a really interesting question. Here's what I think about that question.
Tom, I think you're describing a conversation.
Yeah. Oh, that's because con means like combined and versation. I don't know what versation means, but yeah, that's what I'm describing. And you can get it with me every week at freetomnewsletter.com.
Oh, of course. And unlike other bulk emails, you're actually going to read every single reply and have a conversation with people.
Yeah. So I will not be spamming you. I will be telling you what I think and links to all the shows I do, like Cordkillers. And then you could just read that. There's no obligation on your side, but if you want to respond to it and have a conversation, is that how you put it?
Yeah,
you can do that. It's great.
Man, this sounds so awesome, Tom, but don't you need one of them newfangled computers to do that?
Any computer will work, including the one in your pocket.
No, I mean, I don't. But I mean, I have computers, but they're all so old and busted. And
I see what you're saying is your computer is no good. You need a new one. Where would you possibly get one? Doghousesystems.com/rogue.
Oh my gosh. If I go there, I just went to the website on this old and busted. Well, actually, no, I can't even lie. We're an all Doghouse Systems
There is
studio
no non-Doghouse system for you to use.
These are the folks who keep us powered. And so you guys can keep us in business by heading on over to doghousesystems.com/rogue. Use promo code ROGUE at checkout, get something free, and keep us alive.
Let's move on to the front lines.
Front lines.
YouTube will close its original productions team, with YouTube's head of original content, Suzanne Daniels, leaving the company in March. YouTube will honor commitments for already contacted shows in progress. YouTube started its original content with a subscription streaming business, YouTube Red, but was pivoted away from that in 2018 to focus on unscripted music, celebrity, and creative-focused originals. And now it will focus on none of those, to which many people responded, they still made originals? Huh, I didn't realize that.
I mean, and some good stuff came out of the Noble experiment.
Cobra Kai, right?
Yeah, we got Cobra Kai, among other things. I don't think it went the way YouTube expected it to. I think they expected all of their YouTube All-Stars to be essentially a minor league that would create a new Hollywood. And instead, they continued to do their YouTuber thing. And it didn't seem like an ill-fitting suit.
Yeah. And YouTube, I think since then has realized that it can take over unscripted shows without having to pay extra. Like, just continue to be a platform for vloggers to make stuff. And it's just kind of naturally happening, I think.
Yeah. And plus they get to make more money on the winners and less money on the losers and have no upfront expenses. It's a pretty good deal. Spider-Man: No Way Home returned to the top spot at the box office and became the 6th highest grossing movie of all time, with $1.69 billion worldwide, passing Jurassic World and The Lion King. Spots 1 through 5 are Avatar, Avengers Endgame, Titanic, Star Wars: The Force Awakens, and Avengers Infinity War. But most of those played in China, which No Way Home did not.
Yeah, difficulty multiplier for No Way Home. It got to number 6 without even using one of the biggest markets on earth.
We could do an hour on this question, but does it deserve it? Is this a matter of circumstance and timing? Or is it truly so great a movie?
That's so hard to tease out, because I don't think it gets here without being an amazing and great movie. And I say amazing knowing that I just made
standing on the shoulders of the MCU and the Sony franchise.
I think it is legitimately very, very good. Is it number 6 of all time good? And again, number 6 of all time with inflation and stuff. Like, all of these movies are recent. So I don't know. I don't think it regains number 1, even in pandemic times, because nothing else has done it, if it's not that good. So if it's not number 6, maybe in another timeline, it's number 10, but I still think it's pretty far up there.
Yeah. And it definitely doesn't stand on its own without all of the movies that came before it.
And that's true of Endgame and Infinity War.
Exactly.
A bunch of the Force Awakens, like a bunch of those on there. A couple of news moves to note for you cord cutters who like to watch the news. CBS has rebranded its streaming news channel as CBS News Streaming Network, and will bring new shows hosted by its top journalists. So it's not only changing it from CBSN to CBS Streaming Network, CBS News Streaming Network, but also bringing in Nora O'Donnell, bringing in Gayle King, Meanwhile, Peacock is adding free 24-hour local news channels to its tiers, all tiers. But even if you're not paying for Peacock, you'll get it if it's available in your market, similar to what Paramount Plus has been doing with CBS News. So Peacock in Boston, Chicago, Miami, and Philadelphia will get it first, and they say New York and LA will come soon.
Is it irrational that I trust news that's behind a paywall over news that is free?
I mean, I get where you're coming from, which is like, man, if it's not ad supported, there's less influence on it because I'm paying for it. On the other hand, they never make money off news anyway. So
right.
Kind of the fact that they're doing it at all is a loss leader in some respects. So I do like the idea of like, oh yeah, don't put it behind the paywall, make it available for everybody, because that's a way to get people in, right?
Right.
And then move them to those higher paid tiers.
Meanwhile, Netflix is the only streamer so far to sign an agreement with the government of France to reduce the window that the country requires for movies to be exclusive to theaters. France will reduce that exclusivity window from 36 months to 15 months. Netflix and other streamers also signed agreements on investing in French productions as well. Coincidence? I think not.
36? Well, no, it's not a coincidence. Those two things definitely were happening as part of the same deal. That wasn't meant to apply. There was a coincidence. They signed the production deals and the in order to get the reduced window.
Right.
Also to get Netflix to show its movies at Cannes, which was a little bit of leverage. Netflix is like, we're not going to exhibit at Cannes because you won't let our movies come to streaming until 36 months. But the fact that Netflix is still agreeing to 15 months, even, like, that's kind of shocking to me.
Agreed.
Roku had a few bugs this past week. One bug was causing some folks to see a banner ad show up over live TV content and then stay there, even after the corresponding video commercial ended. So you'd be watching, I don't know, an ad for a mobile carrier, and it would click here to sign up. And then the ad would end. You go back to your regular program, and then the ad wouldn't go away. There's a photo of this with a Sleep Number bed, where the Sleep Number bed ad just never went away. Roku said, "Yep, bug, trying to fix it." So hopefully they get it fixed. And Wednesday, some Roku TVs and devices got stuck on a loading screen. In fact, some Roku TVs couldn't even access their HDMI ports for non-Roku devices, just because they were so stuck trying to connect to the internet that they weren't assigning cycles to checking what else was going on. That seems to have finally been resolved.
So I've been skeptical pretty much the entire run of both versions of this show or fearful of Roku devices being underpowered. Could this kind of bug be something where they're trying to do too much with too little hardware?
It could be. It could be. It could be like, the processing just missed, skipped or had a bug or a glitch where it was supposed to reduce that. It's more likely a coding error. Certainly the Roku's getting stuck on the loading screen is a connectivity error, right? It's trying to connect to something before it moves on, and it can't get the connection for whatever reason, and it just won't move on even to your HDMI port. There were lots of workarounds for that kind of thing. That TV content bug, though, it could be because it's underpowered. My guess is it's more likely just a bug.
And finally, we got a few renewals here and other notes. Netflix officially approved Squid Game for a second season, which we expected. Variety reports that season 2 of White Lotus will be set in Sicily and star Aubrey Plaza and Michael Imperioli. Did I say that right? And with Jennifer Coolidge returning, Amazon announced that season 2 of Upload will arrive Friday, March 11th. Ooh. And Variety learned that Disney is creating a live action version of the Aristocats, because if Cats showed us anything, it's that works out really great.
I will say that the Lion King one is all right, and was Disney
live action.
And it was photorealistic CG. I don't think Disney ever said live action, or if they did, they stopped saying it very quickly.
Yeah. You're right. That is fair. However, I will show mad respect to Disney if this is actually live action with real cats.
That would be cool.
I always think of Aristocats as heralding the dark period between animation victories. As a kid, I remember Aristocats being the last Disney animated movie until the 80s came along and they started making animated movies. It was all
the dark
Herbie
times
and
of
Apple
the Black
Gang.
Cauldron and all that other weird stuff.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I don't know that this means they're scraping the bottom of the barrel so much, but it was interesting that they went to Aristocats next. All right, let's get to the dispatches from the front. Hey, it's your boss, another Jay Martin writing in saying, hey, Cordkillers, my mom took me and my sister to see The Princess Bride when it came out. I was 10 years old and thought it was going to be a silly movie for girls because of the title. I couldn't walk out at the time, but I closed my eyes and stuck my fingers in my ears in protest. He thought it was a kissing movie.
I mean, not for nothing. So did the principal character.
If he hadn't closed his eyes and stuck his fingers in his ears, he could have been identifying with Fred Savage the whole time.
By the way, for anybody who missed last week, we were asking for stories of things that you've walked out of. Zachary writes in saying, Tom and Brian, several years ago, I started up the Prestige on the recommendation of a podcast host, not knowing much about it. When I realized that Wolverine was in it, I thought, this is going to be great. But after 20 minutes, I paused the movie to ask myself, why am I hating this? On reflection, I realized that I had a similar reaction to The Dark Knight, and every time my wife wanted to watch Newsies. Was there some kind of common thread tying these experiences together? And that's the story of how Brian helped me discover that I don't enjoy films with Christian Bale in them. Thanks.
You know, and before Christian Bale fans start trying to defend themselves, that's fine. Zachary doesn't have to like Christian Bale. And now that he knows this, it's easier to find movies that he likes. Just look for ones with Christian Bale in them. I think that's really interesting. It's always befuddling to me when somebody doesn't like a director or an actor that I do, but you just have to set that aside and go, like, there are actors and directors that you also don't like. So, you know, it's just different for different people.
Yep.
Alex in Dallas said, hey, Cordkillers crew, after your discussion of the Netflix price increase, I thought I'd weigh in on my personal threshold. This is interesting. Once I heard Netflix was raising its price to $20 a month, I took a long time to think if it was worth keeping as a constant subscription. I don't doubt I'd sign up for the biggest hits, but then I'd leave after a month because Netflix still puts their shows on as a binge watch up front. I've decided that for now, I'm going to keep my subscription. But once I get the 30-day notice email, I will heavily track my 8-year-olds and my own usage to see if it's worth keeping. With HBO Max currently doing a promotion, they are, combined with Disney Plus, the same price as the 4K Netflix tier. With that, I'm not sure how Netflix can justify being the same price as their two top competitors combined. As Tom mentioned, Netflix will raise prices until they believe they no longer can. If this raise to $20 isn't it, I don't think it could creep up much higher without a big drop in subscriptions. Thanks as always, Alex.
Everybody unsubscribe to everything. And then the moment you want to see anything, start it again. It's very easy to do.
Yeah. And yes, you can take some liberties with that and say, like, well, I know I'm watching this show tonight, so I'm not going to cancel it and then resubscribe tonight. But in general, if you're not watching anything in the next day, just cancel it. I think that's a great idea. Well, thank you, folks, for being our guest today on Cordkillers. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack, which is also carried on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We'll talk to you next time.
Hey, Tom Merritt, what's going on?
I'm just hanging out here watching this scroll go by. What are you doing?
Trying to set up a bit where we thank our beautiful, beautiful patrons, all these wonderful names.
I'm sorry, I'm too distracted looking at these beautiful, beautiful patron names going by. Look at that one. I mean, if you wanted to be one of these people, patreon.com/cordkillers would be the place to go.
I mean, they're scratching our itch, like, because we're addicted.
As long as it's consensual, like,
we're addicted to their money.
And love. Might as well face it.
Well, God damn it.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.